My name is Jim Brown. I'm the Executive Director of Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates. For those who aren't familiar with SABA, we've been around for about 22 years. We advocate for better communities. We're actually all about making, helping improve the quality of life by offering people better transportation choices, including bicycling, because everybody benefits when there are more people on bicycles. Drivers benefit. I try to point that out all the time. You don't want me in a car, you want me on a bike, because there's more space for you. So there are a number of benefits for everybody in the community when we give everybody better transportation choices. We are also, we're very involved with working as an engaged stakeholder in the review and development of public works projects and private development projects, of programs and policies. We've been heavily involved with the discussions around the downtown arena, because that has tremendous impacts on the downtown area. We've been involved with discussions about some of the Jackson Highway developments closer out in this direction. We have a number of those kinds of projects on an ongoing basis. We also work directly to advocate bicycling with individuals. So, for example, we offer valet bike parking throughout the Sacramento area, and we do that to turn community events into bicycling destinations. Suddenly, a place that you might not be able to get to on a bike on a regular basis because there isn't a safe place to park becomes that place. So we're finding it's a terrific engagement tool to invite people to get out on their bikes and to meet people face to face and hear about their interests and their passions and their concerns. We also have been organizing social rides. That turns out to be a really terrific opportunity to meet people, show people the streets, give people a positive experience on a bike, particularly people who might not go out and explore on their own. So this is a nice introduction to the neighborhood. So any of you from neighborhood groups, I strongly encourage you to organize a little ride around the neighborhood and go see something fun. It kind of doesn't matter what destination is, what the destination is. Just getting out there on the bike is really the valuable piece of this. I'm also related to today's topic. I'm pleased to announce that SABA, our organization, has been given the gold level bicycle friendly business designation by the League of American Bicyclists. And I'm here to tell you that was a reasonably easy project. So for those of you who are interested in doing that, please see me anytime. I'm glad to chat with you more about how we do it. There are just 3 gold level businesses that have been designated in this round. The other 2 are the LinkedIn headquarters and the city of Santa Monica. So we're in really good company. Also, there's only one other gold level bicycle friendly business in the region, and that's Mercy General Hospital. So again, I think there's a tremendous opportunity here, and I would love to talk to you more about how we can help do that. So now I would like to introduce the legendary Charlie Gandy. I first heard about Charlie Gandy when I was working for the California Bicycle Coalition, and I kept hearing about, it seemed like all of a sudden every day I was hearing about Long Beach. And I was hearing about this guy who got the mayor of Long Beach to state the goal of making Long Beach America's most bike-friendly city. Charlie was involved as the mobility coordinator in getting one of California's very first, was it the first cycle track in California? First protected bicycle facility in California across downtown Long Beach. He also, and when that happened, all of my colleagues in Sacramento said, really, Long Beach? So there was a great deal of Long Beach envy going on in my world. Charlie also was the brains behind the concept of a bicycle-friendly business district, which started popping up all over Long Beach. And so there was a ton of interest in Long Beach. And then I discovered that he has more than enough credentials to do all of that, not least of which is at age 23, he was elected as the youngest person ever elected to the Texas House of Representatives from the Dallas suburbs. So this man knows his way around a red state. He went on to be the executive director of the Bicycle Coalition of Texas. And later on, as with the Bicycle Federation of America, provided the seed money that became the California Bicycle Coalition. And Charlie's most important contribution to my world and this work is that back in the early 90s, he realized that local advocacy organizations were all doing similar work, but without a whole lot of support. So he convened a number of leaders at a ranch in Wyoming, the Thunderhead Ranch, to bring together kind of the thought leaders from the bike advocacy movement to talk about professional development, talk about technical support, talk about information sharing and best practices. And the result of that was a group an organization called the Thunderhead Alliance, which has now grown to become the Alliance for Biking and Walking, which is a tremendous resource for groups like me, like Saba. And so that's a really important lasting legacy for this movement. So with no more delay, I'll turn this over to Charlie. Thank you for being here, Charlie.
Thank you. That was a very generous introduction, Jim. And I'm happy to be here. I hope I live up to that. The first part of this is a review of what's on the wall and what you guys have been talking about for the last 45 minutes or so. And that's going to help me frame my conversation about why this is a good idea. I'm going to be talking about it strategically. I'm going to be talking about how the elements that I see on the board here can fit together into a bigger campaign. Because it really is a campaign that we're talking about here, a political campaign to achieve governance. It's an opportunity for us as bicyclists and as pedestrians, as active living advocates, to decide that in our towns we are going to be a part of the governance. We are going to assume responsibility for making things happen, either in our role as a citizen taxpayer, or as a businessman, or as various roles as stakeholders in the community. It really doesn't matter what role you play. The question is, are you going to stand up and be a part of what's next? Are you going to be the champion for what you know is right? If you're willing to do that, some amazing things can flow from that. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about political change. We're going to be talking about how normal people step forward, take some risks, and then accept the consequences. It's in accepting those consequences is where the opportunity exists, doesn't it? I look around this room, Jim, I see we're all in our late 20s and early 30s. We've got plenty of time ahead of us to lay out a legacy, don't we? And for those of us that are a little bit older than that, that's okay too. You've got more time than you thought you had, don't you? Most of you didn't think you were going to live to 60, did you? Now what am I going to do? It's called a second career. Or it's called an opportunity to pull together what you learned through the School of Hard Knocks and apply it. And in fact, invest it. And in fact, take some risks with your position in your place today. Because this is all that really matters, actually. This is how change happens. Margaret Mead told us about that change happens when a small group of dedicated, committed citizens come together and decide they're going to do something. And I hope that we inspire you to, either if you're a part of that high-performance team in your community today, I hope we pull you to a higher, more ambitious level. I hope that we and my colleagues as speakers here bring in some ideas that you're going to see that you can adopt tomorrow. And in fact, you can make a commitment to it today, and you can start working on it tomorrow. My presentation and the other presentations will be available from Rebecca and the 50 Corridor group, so you don't have to take too many notes on this. And for you older guys, we'll put it on 8-track tape for you. Right? Okay. So, to get this started, let's hear from group number 3. I don't know who the facilitators are on that. Is that you, Dave?
No, it's 2.
Who's 3?
We Jerry Barton agreed to present. He got harangued into presenting.
Jerry? Okay, we need a mic on him. Do we have that?
Yep, we do.
So Jerry, you got Couple minutes. Don't tell us,
Hold on.
don't tell us how you got there. Just tell us what you came up with, or what you agree on, or what are the big ideas that came out of those 6 pieces of paper.
Okay, obviously, we have 6 pieces of paper, so that definitely says something about our group.
You like a large font?
Right, and we have ample space on page 12. So I'll just highlight a few of them. We kind of selected a couple of things to discuss here. Education was something that we thought was important. Basically, really education for people that are cyclists as well as vehicle drivers. I didn't make the notes, so I may not catch everything here. Public awareness and education, more trails, driver education, and this was actually, I think, mine, and that I suggested that bicyclists need to feel comfortable when they're cycling, such that they're not in danger. So that speaks to, again, driver education and facilities, having good quality facilities. Infrastructure is highlighted. The term ample was used, and we liked that term in particular, in that there are ample facilities for everyone. And it was mentioned by Jessica that 80, something I had never heard of before, but that people from the age of 8 all the way through 80 would feel comfortable on that ample infrastructure. Enforcement and signage. Generally, we talked about wayfinding signage and how that makes bicyclists feel comfortable as they navigate their way through the roads. And general enforcement of, I'm not exactly sure what enforcement is about here, but signage, wayfinding, share the road, that kind of thing. Okay, and speed limits enforcement came up twice, obviously. Speed limits, we talked about how it would help if drivers actually drove the speed limit as opposed to going faster than that. Jessica, she's full of all kinds of great statistics. She mentioned something along the lines of if you're going 40 miles an hour, your chance of death is 1 in 10, and if you're going 20...
9 in 10.
9 in 10, okay. And if you're going 20 miles an hour, a vehicle's driving 20 miles an hour and you get hit, your chances of living are 9 in 10. So, with facilities, funding obviously becomes an important factor, and we need additional funds for cycling. We talked about the obvious problems with transportation funding in general, on a whole, even for automobiles, and the need to have a dedicated fund source for bicycle facilities. And to get back to enforcement, now that I kind of remember what we were talking about, we also talked within the context of planning and enforceability of goals and policies, and being able to ensure that new developments include the infrastructure that needs to be there as a part of a early planning context. Coordination with transit, making connections. So often we planners talk about it as the last mile. So if you're going to be able to take your bicycle on transit, you need to be able to bike that last mile or walk it in a bike-friendly facility. Educating public officials is on here, and that kind of, again, that speaks to that planning context I was just mentioning. So I think that's kind of it, and we had 2 great facilitators here, and they could probably add more to this.
Did you capture the consensus of what the discussion was? Is there a minority report? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Who's next? Who's our spokesperson here? Yes, sir.
Group number 1.
Okay, we cover the points that we have already covered here.
Yeah, please just give us the overview of what, because we do really actually want to hear about if you talked about the same things they heard, that means there's to some degree consensus between you about the priorities. So yeah.
I think we have a lot of consensus. Mixed uses in the neighborhood. I don't remember the points of that. Oh, the zoning. Oh, that was my point. Mixed uses, I'm sorry, that was business uses. My own point. So
Did we start serving alcohol? Did I miss that?
You know, pretty or smart as a spokesperson up here. Which would you be? Mixed uses, all of our needs can be met by bicycle. Off-street bike route systems separated from a roadway would be ideal. Oh yes, the category safety. I want to browse through and see if other points have been made. People were concerned with the dogs and stranger danger with riding alone at night separated from the public. So thoughts were to put public assembly places along the bike routes. Lower vehicle speeds we touched on. Education for cyclists and the general public. Bicycling accessible, inclusive, I think we touched on that earlier. At the workplace, bike-friendly showers, changing rooms, talking with facilities people so that if it's a shared opportunity with neighboring businesses in the same complex, perhaps cyclists could benefit from that. Lessening or ending the driving subsidies and perhaps using that for bicycle improvements.
Okay.
Okay, next page. Bike-friendly businesses. I think maybe your talk today. Supervised parking, that was a big one. An example of the Alhambra Safeway was used. Placing the bike parking between the main entrances so that the public is always watching over your bikes, as well as enabling a diversity of bikes to use it, bikes with trailers, work cycles. Shade in Sacramento. It's brutal in the midday, so having businesses with earlier summer hours, educated, enlightened business owners would also be good. Shorter routes within the neighborhoods, more direct paths, better highway interchanges, or perhaps overpasses. El Dorado Hills was used as some poor design on some of their major intersections, particularly crossing Highway 50. Yes. Better connectivity within the neighborhoods with regional connectivity in mind so that all the bicycle planning infrastructure people are talking so that the Highway 50 corridor could be realized. More room for bikes on buses and easier opportunities to use them. Wayfinding signage, which was mentioned earlier, as well as mapping and disseminating the information to the riding public. So they may be out there, but we just don't know they're there. Educating the professionals, the developers, the public works planners, advisory groups, perhaps even the elected officials, getting them all to bicycle with the groups and showing them the positives and the negatives in our communities and neighboring communities. Bicycle activities. For improved driver awareness, perhaps the more bicyclists on the street, the more aware driving public would be of cyclists. The last one would be the champions. Okay, we touched on that a little bit here, taking the public officials out to see the challenges and the benefits of multiple choice route or of a well-designed bike system and enabling 24-hour all-weather bicycling.
Good. Anything else to add from that group?
Since
Yes.
I was in that group, I'll say I don't see off-road as preferable. I think we should make our roads safe. So.
All right. Great. Anything else? Bravo. Thank you very much. And then who's our celebrity spokesperson for this group?
Doctor. Okay.
I'll see. So, you know, we changed our name from Group 2 to the Cyclists of the 21st Century. Very simply, awareness of bike and acceptance of bike commuters. Access on wide streets, we want to make sure these trails are street accessible. Businesses bike racks to park your bike, showers for people when they finish their rides to shower up. Make biking a priority in every way. The way our community is planned, of course, we've shared that. Education safety for riders and motorists, very important. Make sure we have friendly cyclists, because there's different types of cyclists. They're recumbent, I don't know if they're good or not, and the other stuff. Start young with education. Make it normal, right from the school, bike. We need to increase the diversity of riders. We were mentioned, most of the riders are men in a lot of places. There should be 50-50. There should be gender equality. Maintenance of access, stations, repair stations, maybe enact the community to volunteer at these stations and offer repair and tips for bikes. Encourage for riders of all ages, wayfinding interpretation at certain places to educate everybody. Integration of lots of services that are passionate about bikes, create more bicycle-friendly events. Some suggestion of making narrow lanes and consider lane diets, because not all roads need to be big. They can be smaller and you can actually fit more. Design safe routes for schools, What's the best way to get your kid to school? The idea of, in some big cities, doing a parklet, taking away the street parking and create it as a livable sort of thing. Integration of the public transportation with the bicycles, more bike racks on buses, trains, whatever. Educate about the economic benefits. Not just, the health, which we all know, but, you save money. We need local leadership on this. We need to get all of our leaders on bikes. Create excitement and buzz. It's funny when we're riding, people are always, we work hard, our faces are like this, but dang it, smile. It's fun. No, I'm serious, because, I look at runners, I don't think they look happy at all. And I would never do it. But, smile, because it says a lot. Open street days, we open up Scott Road, it's just for bikes. Do that. Lower the traffic speeds, slow everybody down. We can consider signal timing in certain areas to adjust traffic. Roundabouts is another option. There's this thing called traffic calming. Better lighting on streets, because bikes, we like to bike at night too, sort of. Vision, we have to have a vision. In the way we design our cities or our plan, our mayor is to have a vision, bike, something. Community buy-in, your neighbors, get them into it. More women on bikes, make it a priority. Blending many different communities. Remember, there's different types of bikers, there's different types of transportation, blend it all. Make it environmental friendly, and then again, just don't be afraid to express the joy. You can talk all you want, but if you don't show joy, they don't listen to you. That's it.
Perfect. First, I want to talk about your celebrity talkers today. Do you know who these three people are?
Moskowitz.
What are their names? Link, Julie,
And the white guy.
and the white guy. That's Link, Julie, and Pete. Anybody doesn't know who the Hot Squad is? There you go, that's great. Some of you older guys, that's fun. The fact is, you got the Mod Squad here today. I'll be Pete, and of course Jessica is Julie, and Dave Kemp, of course, is Link. There you go. I put this up because I love this line right here. These three will psych you out. That's the intent here today, is to psych you out as the Mod Squad did in the 1970s. I want to share with you a little bit of my background. I come from Austin, Texas. I was the executive director of the Texas Bicycle Coalition starting in 1990. And when in 1990, the only people riding bikes in Texas were Lance Armstrong, racers, and hippie women. And so I said that I represent the only organization in Texas where the men shave their legs and the women don't. That's helpful thinking. And I'm a recovering politician. I served in the Texas House of Representatives in that building when I was in my 20s. I was the last Democrat from Mesquite, Texas, outside of Dallas, and you Republicans can attribute Karl Rove to my political demise as a elected official in Texas. But I got to participate in what Austin has become. I got to do my part to keep Austin weird. And in 1994, I went through Leadership Austin. And those of you that have been through that process know you get to see how a community works from lots of different perspectives. as future community leaders. Well, what we learned from the tech people, those that were recruiting companies from California to move to Long Beach, was that as they'd invite them to Austin. They would get them off the airplane and put them in a helicopter and fly them over Town Lake. They showed them this running path. This is an 11-mile loop around what I was just pointing to, this lake. This is Town Lake in downtown. And this path is our strongest, was, because I participated in this conversation after that, our strongest economic development tool. Because we started from the premise that people make up their minds with their hearts and they adopt a set of facts to support it. And so, and if you don't want to accept that, then you're an engineer and that's fine. But what we learned is that's actually how people make decisions, even with multi-million-dollar companies back and making those decisions. They want a great place that nurtures them. And so we would show them that, and then we'd go show them where they could put their chip-making plant. And we'd show them the university where they'd get their employees and so forth. So I learned about economic development in Austin, Texas. I learned that in 1994 that the city council, made up of a bunch of hippies, decided that they saw all this music happening around in a sort of an ad hoc basis. And one of my buddies, Max Knopfsinger, said, why don't we just decide that we're going to be the live music capital of the world, leave the universe for somebody else, but the world we're going to take on. And so the city council adopted that slogan. And it meant nothing at the time. However, about 4 years later, the business community recognized they were making quite a bit of money on inviting people into Austin to listen to live music through things called South by Southwest and Austin City Limits and other venues. And so that's really where the Keep Austin Weird slogan got traction. That's when the business community figured out that this was a way to mine tourism, that they went all in on this. And all of a sudden, they were embracing these concepts like never before. And the hippies actually got pushed aside because, as you know, those that make money on this stuff can be very aggressive about this. Well, that's the story of Austin. Austin has become, raise your hand if you've been to Austin. Raise your hand if you want to go to Austin. That covers about everybody. And so they have developed this reputation, and it's an economic development tool. It is a very powerful thing. There's not all good in that. There's plenty of local people who feel pushed out of the system, but then there's other people who are renting their house out for $10,000 for a week, and they're coming to California to spend that money. And so it's a new economic development model for communities when they can talk about personality of place. When you can take what's unique and special about your place and package it up in a way that I'll come and spend some money in your town, or you'll do the same thing. That's what Austin does, that's what San Francisco does, and frankly, that's what the Long Beach story has been about. And that's the context that I want to share this conversation. But first I want to give you the emerging trends. I want to give you the context in which this conversation is happening. John hit on this a little bit, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But here, car-free lifestyles among young adults and retirees. This is the future. Within 5 or 10 years, Google will have cars that are driverless driving around California. And from a bicyclist point of view, I'd rather have a driverless car passing me than a drunk driver. And so I'm a big fan of that. And I can see that coming. And I can see where, particularly among young people, where $750 for new car ownership is a very real expense. By the way, that's the secret to urban living. People move to urban areas and they don't make a car payment, they put that money into the rent. And so young people have learned this for years. What we're learning as community developers is that is the future. 20% fewer of them are getting driver's licenses. Toyota, bless their hearts, have learned that among that group, driving is old-fashioned. Isn't that devastating? They hate that. But it is. It's the truth. And you've heard these stories before. Just know it's real. And so zip cars and car sharing, the sharing economy, is emerging in California. And within the next decade, it will be a completely different story in our urban areas. Second is the car share is bike share. You're familiar with this story. There's about 91 cities at the end of this year that will have a bike share program of some kind established in the United States. This is coming to a town near you because it makes a whole lot of sense. Fitting into that new model of car light or car-free lifestyles, bike share is happening. Millennials are moving to big cities and they're staying there. They're breeders. They will, in their 30s, many of them will move out to the suburban areas, but the urban places that are being designed today, such as in Austin and Long Beach for that matter, are creating a diversity of housing opportunities, a diversity of lifestyle opportunities, so that people can, they frankly want people from other places to move there and then stay there and then grow there and build there. So what we're noticing in our downtowns, of course, is that they're moving from central business districts to central neighborhoods. We saw this happen in Seattle in the late 70s, where it was the central business district and it shut down at night and there was a lot of urban decay and so forth. The mayor of Seattle changed the label, therefore the expectations of downtown Seattle from the central business district to the central neighborhood. All of a sudden now, we've got 60% of the people that work in downtown Seattle live in downtown Seattle, and so they have a whole different conversation related to mass transit, related to commuters from suburban areas and so forth. Anyway, these are millennials. Now, and notice that I'm not talking about the sport of cycling, I'm talking about the lifestyle, not lycra. These, and in fact, just, he's a man, she's a woman. The next few slides I'm going to share with you are about women, because guys like us, in our 50s, we have gone about as far as we can go as bike advocates, and if we aren't successful in widening and broadening our conversation and including the rest of the crowd, we'll stay at this relatively small number in terms of mode share. But what we're noticing is when we bring women into the conversation, and women of color, and women such as Maria, who doesn't own a car and lives a car-free lifestyle in Los Angeles, Virginia, who uses this cycle track or protected bikeway because she's an 83-year-old triathlete, and it nurtures her as an athlete. Or Kelly Morris, who is one of our best bike advocates and particularly as it relates to her type, her gender, her age. She is a role model for us, and she's passionate about this conversation. The woman on the left here is Suja Lowenthal. I'm going to talk to you about her as part of this process because she's one of our champions. She is the one city council member in Long Beach who, after hearing a presentation by Enrique Peñalosa, similar to this, about taking this bicycle thing and running with it, as a newly elected city council member in Long Beach, she said to the city manager, let's pursue that. Let's see where that takes us. Let's embrace this notion of bicycling in Long Beach. For all the reasons that we know, let's see where that'll take us. I'll fill out that story in a moment, but Suja is one of our heroes. And then, we're talking about kids and families and not biking to work, although that's an important part of this. It's about the lifestyle of riding. It's about that 1 mile trip to and from the shopping experience, the education experience, the social experience that you might have in your neighborhood. And then as for kids, just to make the point that this is, we find that we're more successful politically when we're talking about their experiences versus our personal experiences. Is it different here? I see the doctor nod his head. The fact is, he's a lot more sympathetic than we are. And in fact, what we learn as electeds is when a woman comes in and makes the same presentation to a elected male, she'll get a completely different response than if a man comes in and makes that same pitch. So it does matter who's delivering the conversation. So those are some trends. Let me make sure that I point out that California currently has a funding source available called the Active Transportation Program that has a deadline of May the 21st to get applications in. If your city is not applying for grant money through this program to do the sorts of things that we're going to be talking about today, that you talked about on these walls, then there's some malpractice being committed in your city. There's some $139 million in this round, and then there's a follow-up round, and then there's another round in the fall, which adds up to about $300 million that Caltrans has to distribute this year. And if you're not part of that conversation, you're missing out. Part of this trend is about Davis, California. You're going to hear more about Davis later on from Dave, and in terms of what they're doing there particularly. What I want to do is point out how Davis is the mecca of bicycling, and in 2017, 3 years from now, 37 months from now, we're going to be hosting a summer of cycling in California that Davis is the focal point of, because it's the 50th anniversary of the concept called bike lanes in America. It's the 100th anniversary of the city of Davis, and it's what's the other one?
200.
Of what?
Bicentennial of the first bicycle.
There you go. So we have a harmonic convergence of things happening in Davis, California in the summer of 17, and our goal, and I'm the vice chair right now of the California Bicycle Coalition, we are putting together a campaign now to invite 1 million bicyclists to California in the summer of 17 to come ride in your town, to stop off in Davis and pay homage to what has happened there, and then go ride along the 50 corridor, if in fact you extend an invitation to those people, to spend their money where you are. And so Davis is an important part. I wanted to get that out there and make you recognize how valuable they are to the 50 corridor is really the point I'm making. And that in 3 years we're going to have a big party in Northern California, and we want you to be a part of that.
Bicycle World Fair.
Bikes World Fair. He'll tell you about that when he gets a chance. Lastly, as part of the trends that are happening in California and how this stuff makes sense to us as bicyclists, is our Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom making that point at that conference earlier this month in San Diego. This is, AAPC is the American Association of Political Consultants. This is the brain trust of political candidates, Democrat, Republican, across the nation. They had their annual meeting in San Diego, and they invited me and 3 other people to participate in a panel with Newsom on the emerging bike culture and how that's becoming a powerful voting bloc for electeds to pay attention to, in fact, to court. And so we were able to lay out to them, oh, by the way, these bicyclists, one of the interesting things about bicyclists as voters is that there is a strong commitment to the concept of bicycling. My guess is every one of you in this room, as a registered voter, would consider a candidate not exclusively on how they rank on a spectrum of bike-friendly or bike-hate, but and so that wouldn't be your only decision, but it would be a part of your decision. Wouldn't it? Raise your hand if that's the case. Right. So we consider what this velo voter concept is, are some very smart, dedicated, resourceful people called bicyclists that are actually bigger numbers than organized labor. There's about 2.7 organized labor members in California. There are some 9 million bicyclists. They're not as well organized yet, but as you notice in San Francisco, we have 10,000 members now of the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition. They are able, oh, there's another picture of a commitment to this. Jim, you got your tattoo? Okay. That's Jim. That's Jim's leg. The emergence of the velo voter, this person who cares about bicycling and will follow the lead of a group, let's call it a local advocacy organization, that has vetted the candidates and has heard from them and has taken a position on these issues and given a candidate a chance to respond to that and then report that to their constituency and to get 5 or 10% of that constituency to show up at the campaign and make phone calls to other bicyclists and to spread the word that they're endorsing these candidates is what is putting bicyclists, not just in San Francisco, but also in San Diego, in Long Beach, where I live now, Los Angeles, and other major cities in California. This conversation is emerging, and I can tell you that our experience in Long Beach has been in this election cycle, where we've had all the serious political candidates embrace and compete to be bike-friendly. And we've got one of those in the runoff right now, and he's quite likely to win. I'll introduce him to you later. But the fact is that we are having, in those cities, we're having a completely different conversation with these electeds than we had in the past, because they recognize we can work for them or we can work against them. And it's not just about the election, it's what they're committing to do once they're elected. And that's where the political power is. Is it different here?
Yes.
Is it different here?
Yes.
How is it different?
Well, I asked the previous executive director of SABA how I should vote in one election, and he said that SABA, by the whatever laws, is nonprofit and can't take a position in political affairs.
You can distribute information. You can't endorse candidates as a C3. I got that. But you can certainly go up to that line and be quite effective in doing it. And so, Jim?
I just want to add, we're involved with a coalition working, it's called the Friends of the Sacramento River Parkway. This is the group working to extend the parkway along the levee all the way down through the pocket area down into the Delta. And the leader of that group is an incredibly energetic fellow who is currently surveying all of the candidates for the city council seats. We have 4 council seats up this election. He's surveying all of them about bike friendliness, and we've been talking about how SABA can use that information. And we've run into the C3 prohibition of endorsements, but his is not a nonprofit organization, so he's going to go ahead and make his recommendations. And guess what? I'm going to report all about the results of his surveys. I don't need to take a position. I'm just going to make sure everybody in the freaking world knows where these people stand on these issues. So that's the way that we can play this game without getting into trouble with the IRS. So.
And that's what's next. That's what's emerging. So thank you for putting that up, and recognize that we're on the bleeding edge of this conversation right now. I love that about California. That's the reason I'm here. We can't have this kind of conversation in Texas and many other backwater states because of the framework in which political decisions get made there. In California, it's a completely different conversation. So there's only 3 types of cities. Bellwether cities, I would call that Austin or Boulder or in some ways San Francisco or Portland or Seattle from the bike point of view. Bandwagon cities, these are the ones that look at the bellwether ones and then benchmark and catch up. They are the Long Beaches of the world. They're this next tier. New York City is a bandwagon city. They learned from the early adopters and then applied virtually everything that you've seen there. They learned some of that from Europe, by the way. They're not afraid to adopt and import European concepts, and in fact, that's the reason why they're on the map now. And then there's backwater cities. These are people, are communities that look at this and say, this is not for us. And I can tell you a quick story about it because I was in one of those types of cities in Texas in the early 90s, and a young woman from the Lions Club was giving me a tour around downtown, and I said, you know, you're talented, you communicate well, you've got some great ideas for this town. Why is it stagnant? Why is it not doing anything? And she says, oh, Charlie, all this town needs is 12 funerals. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? She said, well, there's about 12 people, some of them are on the city council, some own businesses here, that their winning formula was created in 1958, and it hasn't changed. And until those people get out of the way, not much is going to happen. And she was right. But then, curious thing happened. I went back a decade later, and there'd been some council changes. There'd been some turnover in who was running the city. And she was then in the driver's seat, and her crowd were actually moving things, and they were becoming a bellwether city. They were benchmarking against their competitors and then hurrying to catch up. That is what this conversation is about. It's about champions. It's about people taking the initiative to go do something with a realization that sometimes there are big obstacles in the way, and it's not going to happen the way we need it to or on the timeline we want it to. But this is what cities do. This is, by the way, this is what individuals do, isn't it? Also, some of us are early adopters, others of us hold back, and then those of you that have Atari computers, you can identify with that. And then some of you haven't embraced computers yet, and I got that. That's okay. That's what we deal with cities. So let me share a case study with you that's called Long Beach. Because it's one of those bellwether cities that, as somebody alluded to earlier, is not Santa Monica. It's one thing when a boutique city like Santa Monica does something in Southern Cal. It's another when those rednecks in Long Beach do something. That's what has changed, and that was a purposeful change that happened when I talked to you about Suja Lowenthal stepping forward and being a part of the new conversation in Long Beach. It was no longer about the port or about Snoop Dogg or about the naval station or something else. It was about recognizing that Long Beach is flat and it's Mediterranean and it's room temperature all the time. It's a great beach city. In fact, that's what our DNA is all about. And so why not embrace that? Why not make that a centerpiece of our conversation and use this active living model, specifically bicycles, as our vehicle? And so after that conversation was held in 2007, one city staff person was put on finding some money to make all this happen. And so her name's Sumi Gant. Let me see what I got here. Yeah. Sumi dusted off the bike plan that had been written in 2001 and not acted on. Anybody ever seen a dusty bike plan? Right. Good intentions, lots of public involvement, lots of good ideas, put into a 50-page or 100-page report that then becomes nothing. Until somebody brushes it off and says we're going to do something with it. Sumi started writing $500,000 grants out of that to do the bicycle education portion, another $500,000 to teach our police officers and our transit operators how to interact with bicyclists, a couple million here for a bike boulevard concept, another $1 million for a protected bikeway design. All of a sudden, she had $12 million from SCAG, Metro, Caltrans, federal dollars in a year to do those things, because what was happening in Long Beach, or excuse me, in Southern California was, with the exception of Pasadena and Santa Monica, none of the other cities were embracing bikes, and they weren't competing for those funds. Long Beach came in, and it's the second largest city in that area. Of course, Los Angeles is the largest, and it's 8 times bigger, some 4 million people. We've got about 500,000 people in Long Beach, and so it's a big enough city to have resources to do this stuff, and it's not a boutique city. So we had some 12 million to work with, and Sumi had started putting together a high-performance team to execute these plays. And I came to town about that time in 2009, and have been on this team now for some 5 years. And I've moved on. I'm no longer the mobility coordinator for the city. I did that for a couple of years, but I'm an activist in the community now and playing a big role. This is the city council in Long Beach, and me and a couple of others. This is Suja Lowenthal. This is the city manager who put Sumi on raising that money. This is Robert Garcia. He's going to be the next mayor of Long Beach. And I'll talk to him about that later. But one of the rallying tactics that we chose to use at that time was embracing this notion of Long Beach, the most bicycle-friendly city in America. When we put that out there as a conversation, some people were anxious about that. What if we can't do that? What if we fail? What if we don't achieve that? And then others, interestingly enough, business people, looked at it and said, well, if you're not going to do that, then what are you going to do that inspires me? What are you going to do that's big enough for me to invest in this? And if we're not going to go and decide that we're going to climb the biggest mountain in the range, then who else is going to do that? Because I'm going to invest in them. Interestingly enough, that decision was made. It was made by a business owner, Mark Bixby, in Long Beach, finally saying to the city manager, Pat, we've got one shot here. We've got one shot to extend our reputation, to put ourselves out there as something different, and to give people a chance to respond to that. Mark's taunt to Pat West was, Pat, it's time to go big or go home. And with that, Pat, of course, his manhood's at stake. He said, okay, let's go. By putting that up, we created a challenge. We're not going to be, anytime soon, the best bike city in America. But you know what? We're quickly approaching the top 10. And what has happened is embracing that risk, embracing the consequences of that has energized communities that we never thought of before, never recognized. It's that proverbial taking the first step, and you'll notice what's new and different, and resources will come to your aid. But the reason I ran for the Texas House of Representatives when I was 22 years old is because Norman Vincent Peale had said, "Be bold, and the forces of power will come to your aid." You've heard that before. And so when you step out there, people come to support you. People take shots at you too, but you find resources that you didn't know that you had before you took the step. So by taking that step, this is a $30,000 piece of art that the artist, this guy right here, decided to give to the city because he believed in that cause. We had business owners, Jack's Bikes owns 9 stores. He showed up at one of our community meetings and he said, you know, I don't know who you are. I don't know, to us as this team in the city. I don't know who you are, but if that's your ambition, I want to be a part of that. Tell me what I can do to support that. How often do you get that from business people? I put that up because that is a campaign. That is a context in which everything else gets decided. Long Beach decided to embrace, not just tolerate bicycles, not just put out lines and say we're bike friendly. They decided that it was going to become a part of who we are. Not unlike Davis, by the way. They've done the same. They did that. We learned from them. They did it all. It's a different conversation. It's a different tone, but it's the same idea. Let's do something bigger than us, bigger than any one of us, and let's do it together. Let's cooperate. Speaking of cooperation, so let's just find out if you're cooperators or not. Do you have what it takes to get along with each other? And so we're going to do a little test here. This is going to be a 3-minute test to find out if you've got what it takes to do this. I want you to turn to the person next to you and embrace their hand like that with your thumbs up. Just like that, with your thumbs up like that. Just find somebody. There you go. Just right hand, left hand. There you go. Do it like that. There you go. Yeah, okay, you got it. I don't care. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Let's see how many times you can pin the other person, that you can pin each other in the next 10 seconds. You ready? Set, go. I'm not going to do All right, stop. Stop. Okay, good. Anybody get hurt? How many of you, I'm sorry, how many of you got more than 20? Oh, really? All right, 20. How many got more than 10? How many got more than 5? How many got 0? What did I ask you? What was the question? You got more than 20. What was the question?
To see how many you could do in a minute.
Right, or 10 seconds actually. Right, and so how did you approach that problem? You got more than 20.
Right, we got 31.
How'd you do that?
I let him pin me first, then back and forth.
Really? You cooperated, and you got 30, and you won the prize. Isn't that amazing? So you notice what happened there. And if we did it again, I bet you'd get more than you did before because you'd recognize that we're hardwired to compete. You heard competition in that. You heard what's in it for me. You didn't hear the directions. And that's okay. I put that up because that's part of the rethinking I'm encouraging you to think about here as it relates to your participation in the political world. Oftentimes when we come together and help others achieve their objectives, we achieve ours. And that little test on cooperation, I think, is a good eye-opener to that. So Long Beach, back to this case study in Long Beach. We learned a couple of things. One is when we put this stripes down on the street and we take this out of the conversation mode and put it into the implementation mode, what a robust conversation we produce. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've put something unique and exotic out on the street, such as a green stripe, designating this as a Shero lane through a very valuable commercial retail district in Long Beach. This was a test. This was our first stepping out and showing the community that Long Beach as a community had decided to be an innovator city. We put this green stripe down. It cost us $5,000 for that paint. And for those of you that know about construction costs in cities, that's called decimal dust. It's not expensive at all. And what we learned was it was brilliant communication to both bicyclists and motorists. So one of our lessons learned in Long Beach is when the authority figure, that is the city of Long Beach, decides that it's going to communicate right use, and in this case, we're going to put a Shero. We don't have room to put a bike lane in here, but we do have room to communicate to motorists that we expect bicyclists to be here, and we're communicating to bicyclists that we expect them to be here, that we change the dynamic of the conversation. No longer is it a Darwinian conversation about, from a motorist point of view, if they're deciding if you're supposed to be in that lane or not. The authority figure is communicating that that is the right use. And if it's a simple bike lane, if it's a Shero, if it's a protected bike facility, whatever that is a communication that we as a community are embracing and supporting bicycling. And that is different from where we've been before. In the past, we've privileged motorists almost exclusively everywhere. And we figured out that that's a weak strategy. That's what Los Angeles is doing, and that's one of the reasons why it's failing in Los Angeles. Why are we, and so places like Long Beach are big enough to matter and small enough to move. We were able to do that under our own authority, under our own equipment. We didn't request any permission from anybody. In this case, we did a partnership with the Federal Highway Administration because this is a federal experiment. We got an award for it and all that. But that was our first step out into the world of embracing bicycling, and it paid off for us pretty well. The second big project, or the third big project, the second one it's out of order, but this one is a protected bikeway or a cycle track. You're familiar with this concept, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, all right. So we put this through about 1.5 miles through downtown Long Beach, along a corridor that's a business corridor, straight through the heart of downtown. We surveyed 6 streets on 3 on either side, and recognized that we had more car capacity on the street than we needed, and therefore it would be the engineering calculation that it would have minor, if any, impact on the flow of cars through this district. And in fact, we were right about that. The same concept, by the way, is being played out in Davis, California. I want to again put that up as an example of where this tool, this cycle track or protected bikeway tool, is one of the most valuable new tools that we have in the tool chest. And in this case, he's connecting trails along a short street that, and so they're doing an application of this that is unique in the country. And so when professionals such as Dave are given the permission to act on this stuff, they have the political will of the city backing them up, they can solve problems like this and connect trails and put facilities out there where people didn't see the opportunity before. So here are the statistics for the downtown Broadway and 3rd separated bikeways. One of the smart things Long Beach has done is measure stuff. We measured the crashes before and the usage before, and we've measured it after, so that we could get past the fear-based conversations to the evidence-based conversations. And so while we took some risk in applying these new tools, we also knew that if it failed on us, we'd pull it out and put it right back to where it was previous to that and move on. Fact is that we've taken out nothing. We've modified, but we've not taken out anything. And these are the results in our downtown area. The third big project was a bike boulevard, Vista Bike Boulevard, which is 1 block over to the right here is Broadway, a busy thoroughfare. This is a adjacent residential street that works as a very good corridor, inter-neighborhood corridor for all the kids going to Lowell Elementary on one end and Horace Mann Elementary on the other end. Consequently, we've here are the results of this after 3 years. Best part is positive effect on real estate transactions. Everybody that puts their house up for sale on the Vista Bike Boulevard uses that as a selling point. I'm not here to tell you that we added value to the place, but we certainly haven't detracted from the value, and they see it as an asset or an amenity to be on the Vista Bike Boulevard. So that speaks for itself. Long Beach has decided, back when we were rich and had RDA money, that we would put it into an iconic building such as this, right in the heart of our downtown neighborhood. Notice these are 3-story condos here and over here on all sides of this little pocket park, frankly, and a urban common in downtown Long Beach. And we spent $1.5 million on that building. Again, when RDA money was around and it was flowing. It's not flowing now, and I'm going to show you how we've done economic development post RDA. But in this case, this is the third building. This was the first bike station in the United States, established in 1996. And it's essentially, if you've been to Europe and been to a train station, then you know the model. This is a place where you can park your bike, where you get minor repairs done on your bike, you can store your bike, and so it facilitates intermodal transportation. It's right next to the Blue Line that goes to downtown LA and so forth. More important, it's our icon. It's another example of how Long Beach has embraced a different lifestyle than we have done in the past. All right. So she's giving me 5 minutes, and so I've got 30 minutes worth of talk. I'll just talk fast. We did the other E's as well. I've just talked to you about engineering. We've also done education programs. I talked to you about those $500,000 grants that we've implemented. We've done bike-friendly business districts. Here's the meat of this from an economic development perspective. The city got a small grant, some $72,000 over a couple of years, to do this campaign called Bike-Friendly Business Districts. It's a combination of things. This is the website. What we learned was that within about a mile of a business district, in this case, we have some 10,000 households. And so if we create a new and different conversation with those households, we can generate fresh business for that business district. And so we consider that business district the hub with folks coming out from all sides. We do the infrastructure element of this first, which is designing the streets so that people can get there by bike in a safe and attractive way. Then once they're there, we give them discounts for showing up by bike or by walking. They do activities all the time. Part of that is a Bike Saturday campaign. I won't dwell on it, but that's a website. We spent about $12,000 on fleets of bikes for these 4 business districts that we created. Cargo bikes, delivery bikes, and commuter bikes that we simply checked out to these businesses, and you can see that they were high visibility on the street, and people got a chance to taste this alternative lifestyle. We put bike racks out everywhere. That's part of the conversation that came up earlier today. I heard in the breakout presentations the notion of putting a bike rack over in the corner someplace is undesirable. We call this rock star parking. We call this putting a bike rack in front of where people want to go. And that is privileging those who would show up by bike because 1, it's free, and 2, it's a more attractive parking space. It's highly visible and exactly where we want to end up. And so we put those everywhere. I mentioned that that's what the city has done. What's more remarkable is what the business improvement districts themselves have done. This is the Downtown Business Association of Long Beach, and the one in the middle is Bixby Knolls. They came up with their own banner campaigns, and then right now, it came out last week, the Downtown Association came out with a new set of banners. But I know you can't see this, but that says explore by bike, shop by bike, relax by bike, explore by bike, exercise by bike, and meet up by bike. That is the Downtown Long Beach Business Association. They're the ones that are our biggest fans because they recognize that if somebody shows up by bike into downtown, 1, they're a local shopper and they're going to be spending their money locally. As important, they're leaving a car parking space open for somebody from Orange County to come in and spend their money there too. So in a place where parking is tight, it's a smarter strategy to have people showing up by bike, and it's developing a fresh and stronger bond with those that live within a mile or so away. So that's why it's making sense to these guys. That's why they're spending $40,000 as a sponsor of this Bike Fest coming up in about a week, because they see this as part of their identity as well for downtown Long Beach. Just to finish this out, critical mass is one of the activities that happens among these bike-friendly business districts. It's where we get them out on neighborhood streets as group rides so that they can see their streets differently from they did before. And this feeds right into teaching kids how to ride bikes around their neighborhoods and with their families and so forth. Part of this bike-friendly business district deal is showing retailers how to go about being cooperative in their marketing and therefore increasing the business for the overall district. And not to dwell on this, but we talk about traffic management in terms of the speed of cars moving through their place. We talk about ample parking for both cars and bikes. We talk about marketing strategies where they are seeing that it makes some sense to privilege bicyclists and pedestrians and those that live close by. And then we're talking about walkways and the context again. And lastly, activities that are ongoing. I want to share this about street decks. In one of the breakouts we talk about parklets, which is the public version of a public space where we take out a car parking space and put in a place to congregate. In Long Beach, what we figured out is we can do that, but we haven't because we have so much demand from businesses that want to spend their money to extend the sidewalk out and do outdoor dining, such as in this case. So we changed the label of this. Instead of it being a parklet, being a public space, it's a quasi-public space that's being paid for, in this case, by Berlin Coffee House. They were able to add 22 new places to sit out in the front, which is high visibility. In every case, we've done 4 of these. Let me show you another couple of examples. This is the parklet example in Los Angeles, which is fine. Here's Lola's. We took out 1.5 car parking spaces here. And by the way, we have a no net loss of parking strategy, and that is we'll find a space to replace those within a block in doing this. And we have full buy-in from the business association and the neighborhood and so forth. Lola's put his in, he was first in January of 2012, so it's been a couple of years since it's been in place. He spent $25,000 on this. His business is now up 30%, and he's added 6 new employees to accommodate the growth in place. They were getting solicitations to move because they had outgrown their space. He was able to add 25 seating spaces here and grow in place. He's a big fan of this whole deal, and he did it with his money. That 25 grand, he owns all of this out here. He can put it on eBay and sell it tomorrow, but he'll tell you, Luis Navarro, the guy right there will tell you, that his business is up 30% because this is a highly visible location here. This is, as others were saying in the breakout session, this is activating the space. When somebody drives down that street, they see a party going on in the street deck and make their decision about where they're going to eat that night. So in every one of these cases, we have added 6 new employees and the business is up 30%. And the lagniappe on this, the unexpected consequence was car companies, this is Berlin, 2 car companies have paid Berlin $10,000 a day, total of 20 grand, to rent the street deck from them to shoot car commercials because they want to be associated with what's hip, what's young, what's next. That's the first mover advantage that these people have. They've paid off their investment and they're big fans of what we're doing. Here's the latest one that we've put in. It's part of our Green Street program. This is the bioswale. This is at Last Cafe. He's put in 39 new seats here and around the corner. Again, hired 6 new employees to do this. Business is up 30% and a big fan of this. And so now we have a demand among business owners to do this because it's a smart use of that very expensive or very valuable real estate in front. And from the city's perspective, we're getting an increase in our sales tax. We're getting an increase in the number of people employed. We're getting a better use of this streetscape, this curb extension, than was there before, with no net loss of parking. So that's the pitch. You've got this story in your packet, and I encourage you to think about that because that's a good economic development story. To wrap it up, 175 businesses are participating now, getting discounts of some kind or doing some kind of their own marketing related to active living, bicycling and walking. 4 business districts, 30 new and expanding businesses related to bicycling. I didn't go into depth on that, but about half of those are new bike shops that have come into Long Beach because of the bike campaign, and they can see the new business generated from that. And then lastly, students are staying in Long Beach. We have created that that diversity of real estate and experience in Long Beach that has given people a reason to stick around. How are we doing it? Citizens are leading the way with big, hairy, ambitious visions. Electeds are following with political will, and then we're doing real models and pilot projects among the professionals making this stuff happen. So, we've got, and I'm not going to dwell on this, but we're doing the Bike-Friendly Business 2.0 again. It's all about those 5 E's. With the addiction of events, we're recognizing that in these business districts, events are really what create the change in people's habits as customers. So with that, today's Mod Squad in Long Beach is Suja Lowenthal and Robert Garcia. Suja is going to be our next member of the State Assembly, and Robert's going to be the next mayor of Long Beach. This is your competition. These are the people who are out there raking in the money and are winning the conversation about bicycling and active living as part of the narrative of Long Beach. What's next in that community? That's who I like to be associated with. That's why I'm in this conversation. I appreciate very much the opportunity to share that with you.